Hello and welcome to this level 2 video. This is the third of three, the final, I guess, portion of this construct that I have been talking about, which is essentially the torus, um, just looking at it in a more dissected way with these three parts. The external toroidal flow, the inner magnetic um, core flow, and then this sort of conversation between the two, which is observed as the mobius flow or lemniscatic, or sort of this figure eight recycling infinity motion, is the third and final part. Um, I've already had quick videos for part 1 and 2. If you haven't seen those, the links will be below. Definitely watch those after. All three of these work together in this beautiful, organic, free-flowing, positively aligned system where all are on sort of the same sovereign level and all are free to interact. And yeah, they're all a partnership, and they make this whole creation of energy. Whatever the creator consciousness is looking at, that's contained within, is made, is a co-creation of these three things. And I'm going to get into that after, when we talk about the whole and how it works with the external world, how it works with the field and the ether around us. And that's another big part of this energy system series, and understanding, the metaphysics that's happening, along with the real physics and the quantum physics. All of these spectrums of observation are going to come into play and are very helpful. To take it slowly and just introduce basics here is my hope with these videos. So for this third and final portion, I'm going to share screen for the template that I've been working with through these three videos. You'll notice that they have been very similar looking in the presentation, with this sort of neutral tool as a reminder here at the top for us about what we're talking about, right? About what this torus represents as a neutral tool. And hopefully, like I have said, we'll get better language. Maybe we'll have a new word to call this sort of reality bubble, or energy container, of conscious awareness, because it it is represented by a torus. It has a toroidal flow, and it does, present itself in a perspective as that. However, that also is limiting because we have preconceived ideas about what the torus is. We have a lot of scientific research and studies and bodies of knowledge and academia and all types of influences already sort of charging up and creating this sort of cloud of a concept around the word Taurus. So that's why I'm kind of saying and hoping for a new word, or to really showcase the whole of these three parts in the working. But yes, so underneath that same thing we've seen at the top for the three parts, we have the flow. I found this graphic probably on Pixabay. I feel like it captures the movement of what's happening and how it really does create, from one perspective, this figure eight shape. And that, for me, is a really great reflection of what this outward flow is doing. As you can see, I have a couple of bullet points that I'm going to look over down here, to just talk about what this flow is. like I said before, it's a communication between the Taurus, the toroidal external, masculine, actionary kind of flow, and this internal magnetic core, the more divine feminine, receivership, and pulling in kind of flow. Both are represented within the Taurus, and both are necessary to have the shape working, right? Um, and they balance each other out with this push and pull. But how it does that, the charge of polarity that's collected while it's doing that work, um, how it does it, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the mobius, that lemniscatic flow, this recycling and moving through of energy. Both the external and internal do a recycling of their own energy. They have work to do. They fuel each other in this sort of mirroring way. Um, but it's important to remember that when we have oppositions, they really have a representation as a whole together as well. And it's important that we remember that we don't get too caught up and distracted in the opposing sides, or the head and the tails, or the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, but that we also take a moment to look at that human figure. What is the template of the model of the balance between the two? You know, what's that harmonious solution that both are working towards? That um, and that, I think, is what I'm talking about and attempting to showcase with this third part of the flow. I know both, like I call it a toroidal flow and an inner flow, a vortex of the hourglass, sort of. There is a flow there, but this flow is, you know, the partnership, the dance, you know, when we witness the dance of the two partners, you know, together. That's the concept that we're talking about here, or the perspective. So the flow collects the charge and polarity. The flow is what is responsible for processing and transacting through and with the external and direct world, with the ether space, with others, with the whole variety of life that happens in this sort of multidimensional, multifaceted conversations. Um, it the flow is um, ideally, when we talk about the flow, it is, for me, more important to look at and demonstrate the initial example of the organic design, the original way that it's meant to flow, the original idea, you know, the instructions. It's a free will universe here, and we're free to not follow the instructions, or to make them our own, or to do them different ways. And this is the exploration of manyness. And this is why it's difficult to talk about, especially about um, the flow and charge and things like that, because you can't pinpoint it. It's not as easily witnessed and observed as the Taurus, as the inner core, because it's in constant change, it's in constant flux. So um, it's helpful for us to first have something to work with, have the template to work with, which I think is the original makeup, and what I present as the organic upright position. This organic model in the upright working of a Taurus in itself has the dualistic components. It has light and shadow. It is doing give and take work. It's, you know, that is the organic model of life here in third density. In the place that Earth is in the setting for our plane, those are the rules of the scape that we are a part of with reality. And so it's important for us to understand that something can be positively aligned and working in positive flowing systems, and still have reflections, and still embody and work through contrasts of negative and positive. And you know, and conversely, or the negative realm also holds within it potentialities of reflections of positive and negative workings and systems. This is why it's so important to observe for a while, and to also have a clear channel or antenna inside of you to measure your truth with, to measure intention with. Because when we look out at others or look out at systems and observe and assess, we need a lot of clarity and a lot of light and love in order to really sense what intentions have brought together this system, what energy is fueling it, what it was built upon. Because observations can be delusions in a lot of cases, especially when we get into the negative realm and setting and they want to appear and present themselves as positive. It can be very tricky because they're allowed to do that and they do that very well. And if you don't realize that you've been shifted into an overall negative setting within the plane of reality, you'll be fooled by positivity that it's mirroring at you because it has a mask of a smile on it. But your meter has forgotten the initial place setting is in a negative setting in the first place. So it can't really ever be positive. But you'll trick and fool yourself and forget the place setting and say, oh, positive, it must be positive. But underneath, you'll feel this the disconnection. You'll feel the dissonance. You'll smell the stink of the rot underneath the smile, right? Putting frosting on a shit cake, a lot of times I say, you can be fooled by the smell and the glitter and the frosting and the sugar on top. But if you have real sense and clear smelling, if you're aligned with your truth, you'll smell the crap underneath and you won't be fooled by that on top and you won't want to eat it. You'll take it for what it is and say, no, thank you. I don't need a bite of that to prove to me that it's full of crap. But until we get there, we can be easily fooled and you can fool yourself and you can fool others even into that cake being delicious and good for you. And you might even feel like you're following your truth. You might even feel like you're quote unquote positively aligned, forcing others to eat that cake because you tricked yourself into it's good. It's good for you. It tastes wonderful. Um, And so that's why I really like to pull it back into the foundation first so that we can just talk about what is negative and positively aligned things. How do the systems truly work? What do their reflections honestly look like? So that we know when things are being reflected as shadow or being reflected as light, we could tell that it's a distortion and we seek truth underneath it. As a consequence or as a byproduct or just as a general need to do. That's where it goes. You seek the real truth with it. Um, and so back to I'm sorry, I've gotten into a bit of a ramble. Um, but it's so important to me to understand, for people to understand, and for myself to remember these, the many layers of it. And that we're looking at a surface level presentation right now. Never forget that there's more to dive into. So this flow is a pulsating flux. And like I had said and started with the ramble about the organic design, it does have this lemniscatic figure eight, infinity sort of flow intended for it that is helps one align and gain momentum and to move and flow freely through their chosen way of life, through their river of life, their journey. Um, the pulsing, which happens, is really the light and the shadow and the give and the take between positive and negative. It's happening on many layers at many different times. And the rapid pulsating creates a vibratory thing, which creates a frequency, and a blur, which creates a generality. And we observe the generalities. And that's how we try to start to get an idea of how it's moving and which way and direction it's flowing. Now, ideally, if you have a good organic, positively aligned system, there's a certain flow that you can witness, and it has that more clear cut figure eight flowing happening through it. And then there's a very clear cut negative alignment that is the clear inversion, purposely flipped on its head to distort the truth and create a lie. And that also has a strong momentum. It has a clear figure eight functioning within its pulsating that you can witness and watch. And it has a clear intent and you can see it and feel it. However, this all lies on a spectrum. And that's why I kind of have that light to dark bar down there, and to understand that all of these things lie on this spectrum. and that what we're doing is attempting to collect an average or attempting to take a snapshot image, many, many snapshot images, to then create a median middle ground image of what's happening and of what the processes have been doing and how clearly they've been doing them. Because all of that measuring, is allowed, and it happens in discovery because this is, the law of free will. Um, I really appreciate how Ra from the books of the Law of One, they call the law of free will actually the law of chaos. And I think that makes so much more sense. Or the law of confusion, because that's really what it's here to create. We're here to find sense through chaos, to find the harmonious solutions through all of these real polar opposites, because it is possible to find meeting grounds between even extreme differences. That's what we're here to do. That's what all of these systems are doing within your body at all times. And so when we talk about the Mobius flow, when we talk about the interactions here, all of these things are coming into account. All of these things are being tallied up. And that's why I'm trying to show it as a spectrum here, and to understand that the pulsating movements that are happening through this flow, they want to get into that original alignment of that kind of clear flowing, witnessable, identifiable lemniscatic flow, whether negative or positive. It really wants to have a clear channel. It really wants to gain momentum and flow freely. Whether it's gaining and looking and seeking for a negative alignment, or gaining and seeking and looking for positive. And what does that mean? Whether it's looking out for service to offer out, whether it has a fire inside it, a passion with service, or a trade, or a skill, or a talent, a gift to give, and it's looking out there to offer it out. That's that actionary positive service to others. Or there's conversely the seeking outwards, where you're looking at things that you need to bring into you because you have a service to self alignment. You have a negative balance within you. You feel you're not enough. You don't have enough energy. You don't have enough love. You don't have enough resources. And so when you cast your gaze out and your flow is interacting with the external, it's not really pushing its gift out to offer, because it doesn't feel like it has enough to even do that yet. It's looking to fill itself up first. Then maybe it'll offer things after it's got enough for itself. But the intention is self-service. The intention is survival, filling up to bring in. And so either one can work really well. It is a tool in itself, no matter if it's upright and flowing organically and positive, or whether it's been flipped on its head and it's pulling in negative. Both flows want, either polarity wants to gain a momentum. It wants to flow freely. And what does that mean? It means it has clarity. It means it's honest with its seeking and honest with itself, and it hears communication within the layers, and it reacts and responds with transparency to seek the solution through, to go towards its truth, to go towards whatever it is calling its truth. Um, Now, there's a spectrum in between where there's confusion, especially as we are growing here as humanity. We have this gift given in third density of self-awareness and choices. And we're encouraged to make choices. And we're encouraged to now here have the reins to your flow and see what you can gather, see where you seek at, and go for it. But a lot of us, we get stagnated in between and confused. And this is a whole agenda. And I do talk about this in my negative agendas, tricks and trap series over on BitChute a ton, because there's huge matrix overlay workings to keep people corralled in this weird center space, where we don't make choices for each other. And the center space has actually been shifted a bit to the negative alignment, like I was talking about earlier. They've kind of moved the whole play setting, playground, into like a negative aligned place on the XY axis. And instead of being over more positively aligned or even in a neutrality, they have slowly over time shifted it to double negative area. So it's really hard to even get outside of the focus of negativity. And so a lot of us are confused in the setting, and we can't really catch a good positive flow because we don't understand the workings, and we're fooled by the illusions and delusions of the exterior, negative, reflecting its fake positive at us, and we're being fooled by it. So ways to get back, and the thing about the flow really is that if you align with your truth, that will guide you through, that will correct all flows. It will show you where your channels are bogged up. And so Here at the bottom, I have kind of a couple of examples of these influences that you can work on, you can work to sense and have conversations with to gauge what kind of flow is happening and why maybe, instead of having a more gradual, clear, lemniscatic flow, you feel like you have a jointed, more erratic flow, or even a stagnated, slow, clogged up flow, or maybe it even feels totally disconnected and you can only catch the torus and the inner core a bit, or you can only feel like the outer pulsatings, the spectrum is infinite. And whatever is resonating with you, never try to tag somebody else's to yours. Go with yours and keep going with yours, because your doors and your connections will lead you to where you're meant to be, just like mine have led me where I'm meant to be. And it's a full spectrum here. So we all have the right to do wherever we lie, right? But the examples that I'm bringing forth here as starter points. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg here. Um, the level of transparency that's available. Are you honest with yourself? Are you honest with others? Are you honest within the conversations within yourself, within the layers of your being, mind, body, and spirit? Same thing with the layers of intention of the energetic body, your action of service, the external, your inner processings of how you work through your worth, your inner um, workings, whether you like to align with chakras and those kind of energy working, or meridians or whatever, or whether you don't know anything about that and you want to look at it as just introspection, as personal self-care, and um, a good mental health space. That is what the inner workings are really reflective of. So are you transparent with yourself, or do you create lies in there with yourself? And why, and work on it. Same thing with the speed of the flow. Judge the speed. Is it overactive? Is it hyperactive, right? Or is it sluggish and slow? Is it erratic? Is it confused? And the directionality in the service, and that has to do with how you're communicating with the inner and the outer workings of the torus and the core. Do you feel aligned? Is your service truly aligned to your truth? Um, and why are you seeking the service that you are? And without judgment too. And then we have the consistency of the flow. Are you consistently in a certain directionality, in a certain type of seeking, or are you flip-flopping a lot? Are you sort of in a cycles of manic depressant up and downs? Are they starting to sort of do this and this? What kind of waves and cycles do you feel? And not that it's right, anything is right or wrong. It's just observations to get to know it. It will tell you what it needs and how to work through it as you do the learning. And the momentum, like, do you feel really charged or depleted? Do you feel self-sustaining, or do you feel like you need external input to keep you going? And what's the vibratory resonance of that? What are the feelings of it? Do you feel excited, adventurous, curious? Do you feel worthy and empowered and sovereign? Or, are you feeling more things that are like apathy, stagnation, not caring about things, sort of indecisive? Do you feel worrisome? Um, or like you're fretting about a lot of things, or trying to seek and manage and control things in a more like hyper aggressive, passive aggressive kind of manner? Or are you on a more of an angry, irritated, frustrated kind of thing? Or maybe it's a slump of exhaustion and depletion. You really feel total lack. All those vibratory resonances are keys to where you're at right now. And finally, what I'm going to close with here and to remember is that the key truth that it shows us with the flow and all of this is that change is our only constant. We are designed to be ever flowing. The thing about this reality in this life, both us as human beings and the universe that we are like plopped into right now, is a morphing, always changing, always moving on all levels, from great cosmic macroscopic levels all the way down to the tiny microscopic nano levels. Everything is doing work. Everything is systems of exchange, energy exchange. Everything comes down to it on every level. Just like on every level comes back to initial thought and thinking. And then the thought world being invigorated by spirit and emotions and wantings and desires and being pulled down into physicality, into 3D, and being manifested into something real to be shared and explored. And so the main working here for our third and final part is to really understand how they come together. And it's a conversation, many, many variables that happen and that are ever changing. Just because it looks to you this way right now, allow yourself the freedom to know that later it will be different. It can, it will, it should be. Accept it and expect it. And that will open up way more understanding for you. And maybe you'll be able to pull out of yourself a bit more and see things a little bit more clearly with less personal biases, which is really the fundamental process of doing any of the work within these three layers of this sort of torus shape. So I'm going to leave it there for this third video. I will be coming up next with 3 individual follow-up videos for these 3 parts, where I'm going to give quick energy alchemy exercises for everybody that they can take and do on their own. Sort of just a quick walkthrough of the steps to get in touch with each of these on their own. Like I said at the start, in part 1, this is really about learning to count from 1, 2 to 3 here. And it's about taking the time on your own to learn what 1 really means, to examine 1, like a kid examines 1 thing and learns how 1 is 1. And then putting 2 together and looking at the 2 and saying, okay, 2 is 2, and why is it 2, and how is that different from 1? And then having a third and saying, okay, well, 3 is 3, and that is different than 2 and 1. And then what have I done? I've added 1 more each time to get to that. I haven't added 2, I haven't added 1 and then 2. I've done a repetition of the same action of adding 1 more, of adding another layer. And what does that mean? And how did I do it? And going through each of these steps, looking at the torus like 1, looking at your inner core as 2, looking at the flow as 3. And then we'll look at what counting is. And then we're looking at why we count and how these interact. But this is my hope, to take it slow, step by step with these offerings. So if you've really enjoyed the infographics, just know, oh, excuse me. Dry throat this morning. If you've enjoyed the infographic so far, know that I do have 1 meditation already put up with the toroidal flow in mind, and it's sort of about sensing your torus. It's about an hour long, and it's a really, really detailed, slow build up to get you centered and attached to the heart and everything before, and then to sense and feel the torus. I'm going to do an in-depth meditation for each of these 3 workings. I'm also going to offer these 3 quick videos of just what I'm doing, just a walkthrough. So in case anybody doesn't enjoy guided meditations, they want a self-led one, or perhaps you don't have the time capacity or constraints to really listen to the meditations, I'm going to offer just a talk video that goes through the points of the actionary practice so that people could pull it into their own hygienic routine if they want to in their own ways. So you can check back at my channel later on in July, the end of July, for those. Let me stop sharing my screen here. And thank you so much for taking time to listen to this and for the walkthrough. I hope it has been informative. And I'd love to get feedback from people. So please send me emails, put comments in if you'd like to. Share your words and so others can hear your feedback as well. Comments are really helpful for that. In the meantime, you could always find me directly on my website, amariespeaks.com, or over on Telegram under the same name, Amarie Speaks. So I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever in the world you are. Thank you for your audience. Thank you for your service to our collective. And I'll talk to you next time.